Hey Robert, my name's Chase. I'm a student physical therapist. Is it alright if I work with you today?
Of course.
Good. Alright, so the first thing we're going to do today is we're going to go through 4 different shoulder motions. First one's going to be flexion. We're going to be doing range of motion today. And the difference between range of motion and stretching is going to be that range of motion is going to be moving you through your full available motion you have, whereas stretching is going to be taking you a little bit past that motion into the plastic region. We're going to be causing tissue elongation. So, like I said, flexion is the first one we're going to be doing today. That motion is going to look like this, where you're raising it straight above your head. You want to go and do that for me? All right, back down. So, he's got about 120 degrees of range of motion for flexion. So anything past that would be stretching. So we're only going to go to about 120 degrees, take them a little bit further, and bring them back down. So, start out. So, for my body mechanics, I was going to have control of his distal humerus and his wrist here, so that his hand doesn't slide back down on the table, and that he doesn't go too far past 120 degrees into that stretching zone rather than range of motion. For my own body mechanics, I don't want to be too far bent over, and I want to keep his arm as close as I can to my own body so that I'm not having to use a lot of my back. And as we do it, I'm taking him just past 120 degrees so that he can get a little bit of a stretch at that end range of motion. So our next motion is going to be shoulder abduction, and that's going to be this motion right here. Bring your arms straight over our head. All right, can you go and do that for me? All right, so he's got about 90 degrees of shoulder abduction. So again, we're not going to want to bring him too far past that, because anything past that would be into the stretching. So we're going to do another 20 reps. So for body mechanics here, I'm gonna be holding his distal humerus again and his wrist, keeping his wrist close to my body, so that I don't have to use my back too much, and I can just swing my hips into it. And swing them all the way out to 90, and just slightly past it to get a little bit of a stretch. So the next motion is internal rotation. So that's going to be, we're going to start our arm at about 90 degrees here, and then you're going to be bringing it straight down. All right, so you want to go and show me how much you can do there? All right. So he's got about 70 degrees range of motion there. So again, we're going to bring him to about 70 degrees, go a little bit past that for a little bit of stretch, but we don't want to go too far past that and make this a stretching exercise rather than a range of motion. So for body mechanics on this one, again, I'm going to be holding his distal humerus and his wrist. I want to be preventing his wrist from falling by holding it up with mine, or falling too far down into that stretching zone. And then again, keeping his arm nice and close to my body so I don't have to use my back too much. So our last motion is going to be external rotation. So that motion, we're going to start with our arm down to the internal rotation, the one we just did. And we're going to come up all the way back here, right?
Mhm.
So go ahead and show me that. All right. So he's only got about 30 degrees of external rotation. So again, we're going to take him to about 30 degrees, take him a little bit past that for a slight stretch, but we don't want to turn this into a stretching exercise rather than range of motion. So for this last one, my body mechanics are going to be the same as internal rotation, only hand placement is going to be switched, where my left hand is at the humerus and my right hand is holding his wrist up, keeping it from falling down too far into the plastic zone. And I'm going to keep his arm close to my body. All right, so we got another 4 motions that we're gonna do for hip. The first one's gonna be hip flexion. So hip flexion is gonna be raising your hip up to where your knee's gonna be coming towards your chest. So for this, I'm gonna hold your knee up, and you're gonna try to pull your knee towards your chest for me. Can you do that for me? Pull your knee towards your chest.
Okay, I'm out.
All right. So he's got about 30 degrees range of motion for his hip, just like with the shoulder. We're gonna go just to that 30 degrees and not much further because that would be getting in the stretching zone. So we're gonna do another 20 reps. So I've got my left arm cradling his tibia fibula to hold it up. And I'm going to keep his lower leg nice and close to my body, still not using my lower back. And I can just rock back and forth.
Dude, are you fucking kidding?
All right, so the next motion we have is hip abduction. So this motion is going to be coming straight out here. We don't want to bend our knee, we don't want to keep our knee straight as we come out. So again, same thing. I'm going to hold your lower leg up. And then you're gonna actively move it yourself, come as far as you can on your own, all right? Better? All right. So he had about 45 degrees on his own. Again, we're only gonna go about to 45 degrees, so we can make this range of motion rather than stretching. All right. So since he's got a fairly sizable leg, want a wider base of support, and keeping it close to my own hip, so that I'm not using my lower back too much. And I'm supporting his knee so that he doesn't fall into hyperextension, and then supporting his lower leg so that we can isolate hip abduction. All right, so our next motion is going to be hip internal rotation. So that motion is going to be, we're going to have our leg up here, and we're going to be bringing our ankle out to our side, all right?
All right.
We're going to bring it out to our side.
Cool.
All right, so I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold your leg up. And we're going to be bringing it out to our side again, just like so. So you're going to do that actively on your own. All right?
Right there.
So he's got about 20 degrees range of motion on his own. So again, just like with hip flexion, I'm going to hold him up. All right, ready? So just like with hip flexion, I've got my left arm cradling him, cradling his lower leg so that it doesn't fall down too much, and my right hand stabilizing his femur. And again, I'm keeping it nice and tucked underneath my armpit, so that I don't have to use my back too much, and all I have to do is just rock back and forth my hips. So our last motion is going to be hip external rotation. So we're going to be in the same position as we were just for internal rotation, except the only difference is we're going to be moving our ankle to the inside, all right? So ankle's going to be coming inside. So we're going to do that on your own, as far as you can go on your own, right there. Alrighty. All right, so we're going to do another 20 reps on this side. Ready? So I'm going to be using the same body mechanics as I did with hip internal rotation. So I'm going to be cradling his lower leg underneath my armpit to support it, so that all I have to do is shift with my hips a little bit. All right.